Hello and welcome to episode 25 of the HaxtonKnits channel. My name's Deanna and I am an American living in Okinawa, Japan. This is a little bit of a short episode and a little bit of an unplanned episode. I'm playing with my lighting and my sound. I had to admit to myself that when I went and looked back at my prior episodes that I have taken a little bit of a step backwards in terms of audio quality and video quality, and so I'm hoping today things are a little bit more in the right direction. It comes at an expense, so the current setup I have, it takes a long time for me to set up and a long time for me to transfer all of my video and content to my computer for editing, whereas the old way I was using a GoPro, and of course the sound and video were not as good, but it took seconds to get everything onto the computer and ready for editing. So we'll see how this setup works. So what do I have for you today? I have a very small amount of knitting to show, and it's not for want of trying, but I will tell you more about that in a minute. I have a couple of local craft purchases, so I'm always excited to share with the world and the universe all of the amazing Okinawa crafters that sometimes don't get love on the big global scale. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my plans for the upcoming weeks as I am recovering from surgery and probably won't have a lot of knitting content for you. So let's get started. Always first on my channel is going to be the actual knitting content, because this is primarily a knitting channel and all of the extra life in Okinawa and explory type stuff comes secondary. So maybe if you are here for the knitting, you can get the knitting and then pop on out. I hope not. I hope what I bring as far as life in Okinawa is helpful too. But so this week I have knit 4 adult hats, 1 baby hat, half of a sport weight sweater, and a dog sweater. And I can show you the dog sweater. So I've been doing a fair amount of secret knitting, and it's kind of frustrating, I'm sure, for you, the viewers, when I talk about all this knitting I've been trying to crank out and I can't show it to you. Hopefully in the weeks and months to come, it will get more and more interesting. So basically, one of my life goals is that when I retire from my current job, I would like to make money in some way doing my passion, which is the fiber arts and the knitting and all of those things. Not that I don't have passion for my current job. I actually like my job a lot. I know I've mentioned before that I'm a nurse. But I do one day want to retire from that job and move on to something more hobby related, I guess. I don't know. It seems like a lofty goal, but I would like to find a way to start earning money in a realm, whether it be working at a yarn shop or test knitting or sample knitting or designing. And something that kept happening was I would start designing patterns, because that's something I'm interested in and want to do. And I would get a spark of idea and a spark of motivation, and I would start, drafting out the pattern and knitting away. And somewhere in that time, I don't know if the motivation waned, but definitely the little creeping self-doubt would work its way into my head, where it would be, well, this isn't good. Nobody's going to want to pay for this. Nobody's going to like this. And it was this sort of negative mantra that would get stuck in my head. And so I decided, I guess what came to mind was, you never start out good at something. You have to start something, be okay at it, or even bad at it, and put in the work and practice, and make yourself put in the practice to become better at it. A lot of this thought is coming from the recent, if you watch the Sweet Georgia Yarn channel, Felicia just talked about, putting in the work. She was talking about spinning and weaving, but it really sparked in me that I won't get better at writing and designing patterns unless I do it. And so I set myself a goal that every season, we've got fall, winter, spring, summer, I would write up and design 1 pattern. And so hopefully this will be the launch of a long series here on this channel, and you'll get to see me grow as a pattern designer. But I did write up and knit a hat pattern, which I am okay with. I feel like there's a lot more that could go into it, but I did enjoy the process of writing it and learn some things along the way. And so I'm holding that secret right now as so I figure out whether I want to self-publish or try to submit to someone else to publish. And then I also am currently working on a sport weight t-shirt. And so that'll be obviously geared towards the summer season. As I finished up the hat I was knitting, I realized, yeah, you have to kind of be designing a season ahead. So I started thinking about that and tackling those projects. So hopefully in the weeks and months to come, what will happen is the secret knitting will happen in the background, and then as the past secret knitting comes forward, I can talk about all of those things. And of course, you know me, and on this channel, what's important to me, what's passionate to me is like those finishing techniques and how to do things right and giving those details. And so I'm thinking about that as a pattern writer. And one of the things, so I love a pattern that gives lots of details. That gives you like, how do you want me to cast on and bind off, and which decrease do you want me to use, and what's the best way to seam this together. But I also really dislike really wordy patterns where like I just want to get to the pattern and instead I have to wade through like 6 pages of chatter. It's kind of like those blog post style recipes. Like if you've ever gone looking for a recipe, first you have to get through like 6 pages of pictures and a paragraph about how grandma made this recipe as a kid. So I've been thinking about that and thinking about playing with the way I write my patterns. So I'm thinking all of my patterns are going to be a straightforward pattern with footnotes. And I'm even considering like if you've done academic writing, the way you annotate footnotes in your thing, maybe putting those in and then below plugging in all of those extra helpful like tips or tricks. So if you're a more advanced knitter who maybe doesn't need that information, you can just get to the pattern and get through it. And if you're more of a beginner knitter, you can go down and read all those tips and tricks. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about and what I'm playing with. We'll see how it all turns out, but this is a very long-winded story to get around to telling you I knit a dog sweater. So if you watched the last episode, you know that my mom sent me a lovely, lovely book called Sweaters for Dogs. And no ulterior motives there. She just sent it to me, even though I'm not a dog owner and she is. And I knit for her these 2 very cute dog sweaters. But I had to admit to myself, I think this is going to be way too big. And honestly, I'm not really sure I know for sure how big her dogs are. But I have a feeling this one was going to be too large. And this one was going to fit her smaller dog, which means I needed an intermediate sweater. So here we go. We have intermediate sweater. So now I will send all 3 of these along. I've been holding them aside waiting for this episode so I can talk about them one last time and then finally send them on to my mom. My family, it's interesting, my mom and dad, I never really know where they are. They kind of get in their RV and roam, and I just have to check Facebook and be like, where are you today? Oh, you're in Utah today? Awesome. So when it comes time to send gifts and things like that, I can never really surprise them because I have to send them a message and say, okay, where are you? Where can I mail this to? When are you going to be at a mailbox, in the near future? So I will contact them this week and hopefully this will be on. But I held 2 strands together. One of these is Wister brand, which is a Japanese brand. I think the yarn is called Kylie or Kylie. I will put it below. And I held it together with some, I think it's a sock yarn. It's a German sock yarn and it's got silk in it. Yep, I'll put all of that information right here for you. But I held the 2 together to make this lovely marled yarn. The Wister yarn is a gradient, so it's the sort of gray, green, tan, brown, beige color. And then the hints of purple and pink that you're getting is the second yarn held together. And, this is almost identical to the one I did last week, so I'm not going to go into all of the project breakdowns, but like always, I used my favorite longtail tubular cast on and sewn tubular bind off. And this pattern uses a very interesting, so let's see if you can see it here. It's not a cable. So when I read the instructions, I thought that these were a little like 1x1 cable, and that they were giving you instructions on how to cable without a cable needle, but it wasn't. It was something else. Hold on, let me pull it up for you. In the pattern, when you reach this section here, there was an abbreviation that was TW2, which is not an abbreviation I'm familiar with. So of course you have to go to the back to the abbreviation page, and it says knit into the second stitch on the left needle and lift it over the first stitch, then knit into the first stitch as normal. So not quite a cable without a cable needle. Maybe I executed it wrong, maybe that's what they were going for, but it made this very interesting stitch, which is actually like on the inside of your work, but you're designed to fold it over. So that is interesting to me. I don't know if I executed it the right way, but it's done and it's cute, and that is all I want to say about that. So that is it for my finished objects that I can share with you this week. Hopefully in future weeks you will have some other finished objects. I have been plugging away on my whips. So I mentioned last time I'm having shoulder surgery in a couple of weeks, I think. So December 10th is my surgery date, if that doesn't change. And I'm going to be in a sling for 6 weeks. So I don't know how much knitting I'm going to be able to get done. So I've been trying to like plug away at my secret knitting so that it's done, and some of my whips that are currently on the needles. So hopefully this will be done shortly. So not a lot of exciting updates. So this is of course Andrea Mowry's this is the night shift, which is one of her series of patterns using this slip stitch pattern, which you can hopefully see really nicely the way I'm holding it here. This pattern will be done whenever I decide it's done, because you just can keep increasing infinitely depending on how big you want it to be. I did take it all off the needle recently. I made a mistake, probably about 8 rows back, and I was going to try to ladder down and fix it, but I had made the mistake. Basically, I had screwed up the stitch pattern, and now I would have had to correct all of the stitches all the way across the row, and it was just turning out to be too much work. So I did take this guy off the needle, and it is pretty much a standard shawl size right now, but bigger is always better. And I want to use up as much of this yarn as possible, because this is 100% my own hand spun yarn, almost all of it from Nest Fiber Club. So hopefully this will be a finished object one day. I keep thinking it's probably time to start weaving in ends, because I am going to have a bunch of them, and you know how it is with weaving in ends, where you want to just put it off for as long as possible. Thankfully there's not too many. It's just every time I do a color change around here. So there you go. Let's talk about acquisitions, because I have quite a few this week. First of all, I'm going to be talking about the Sweet Georgia Yarn Advent Calendar. There's no spoilers here, so she's doing her calendar a little bit different than the rest of the world is. I think traditionally when you see Advent calendars, you see like little secret packages of mini things of yarn, like little teeny yarn minis. And what she has done instead is the mystery part is the finished object that you're going to make. So it's actually going to be like a mystery knit along, but you pick out your yarn palette ahead of time. So if you are ordering this for yourself, there's no spoilers here, you know what's coming. However, if maybe you think one of these is coming to you in the mail as a gift from someone else, maybe you want to look away for a few minutes while I talk about the yarn. So here it is. This is my yarn from Sweet Georgia. And so she offered 2 different colorways. Oh gosh, you're not gonna be able to see that. Let's just pull the yarn out and play with it. There was basically like a cool and a warm color palette that you could select from, and the warm one was lots of pink and red and orange and that sort of fall feel. And if I had to be honest with myself, that's not really my normal color tone and palette. So instead I got the cool palette, and it ends up being a big gradient with about 3 extra skeins, which are kind of a gradient in a different color. So this is about half of it here. So let's see, she put all the colors on here, and it's crazy to me. I could not tell that these were a gradient until I lined them all up out here. I couldn't tell from the pictures, but what you see in my hand right here, starting with my thumb, is Dreamboat, Starlight, Mermaid, Beach House, and Lost Lagoon. And they are so, so, so pretty. And these are pretty hefty. They're not small. I think each one is, let's see, 82 yards or 22 grams. So 22 grams, pretty good size. All right, now let's get the rest of the colors out of here. So the remainder of that gradient is 4 more colors. And I'm not gonna untangle them this time, but there you go. And so these 4 are Bluebell, Lupine, Velvet Elvis, and Aubergine. And then at the very end are these 3, which are kind of a grayish pink palette, also in a gradient, but not the same gradient as the rest of these, which, I mean, that makes sense, right? These are going to be our contrast colors for whatever's coming. And those are in Magician, London Fog, and Lady Grey, which are these guys. Yeah, you can't see that. There we go. Oh, yarn down. All right, so how does this work? You get this lovely, lovely plaque of yarn, and you get this Open Me First, which is your instructions. And then each of the Advent days, you're going to have another one of these to open, and it's going to have your pattern instructions for whichever pattern you pick. There are 3 to choose from. So there's 2 knitted patterns. One of them is a blanket, one of them is a shawl, and then there's a weaving pattern, which is meant for a 4-shaft loom. And what am I gonna do? Well, I looked at, so you can't see the finished objects, but you can get like the specs from their website. And the blanket pattern, you basically, as soon as I heard there's a blanket pattern, I was suspicious, because this isn't really enough yarn for a blanket. And I did go and look at the specs, and lo and behold, it is a pretty small blanket. I think they said it was 27 inches by 27 inches, which in my book isn't even really big enough for a baby blanket. So I'm not so sure what the deal is there. But that is a blanket where you hold 2 skeins together, and then I guess that lovely, lovely color gradientness is going to happen as you hold those skeins together, those colors together, and, like, you know, blend them and marl them. It's, I think, going to be a really lovely blanket. I just am not so sure about the size of it. I think maybe if I were going to do the blanket, I would probably follow it to pattern and then buy like 3 more of these kits and then sew the 4 pieces together to make a giant blanket, but alas. The other pattern is a shawl, which had great looking dimensions. I think it had a 61-inch wingspan and looked like from some of the charts that it would have some lace, which I guess makes sense. Shawls are usually lace, right? Let's get away from that. Let's get away from the idea that shawls are usually lace and start making cool shawls that aren't lace. Anyway, and the last thing is this weaving pattern, which is intriguing to me. So it's supposed to be with a 4-shaft loom, and I don't have one of those. I have just a rigid heddle loom. But I've been looking at some YouTube videos. I'm looking past you guys at my loom, which is sitting already warped and not being used because it is warped with this alpaca yarn, and I am a beginning weaver, and the alpaca is proving to be difficult, so it's sitting in timeout here in my craft room until I decide to get back to it. Okay, anyway, so 4-shaft loom. I've been looking at a couple of YouTube YouTube videos where they convert a rigid heddle loom into a 4-shaft loom by using dowel rods and strings to create whatever those are called, the little eye things that you, anyway. So I'm actually considering trying to do the weaving pattern. And I think that means that this project is actually going to have to push out past Advent, just sort of depending on how I'm doing, because I don't think I'm going to be doing any weaving at all with my arm in a sling, because I think I really need both arms to weave and manage dowel rods and whatever else I'm going to be working on. But that will be hopefully for you to see soon. The really cute thing about this project is that it comes with string and little bitty clothespins in so you can string up and clip all of the 24 pattern pages, and they're all labeled one, in order. And then there were also 3 little teeny gifts, which I have clipped onto my hung up advent calendar, and I will open them as you come, as I get to them. So let's see, what does that mean for future? I have to have my surgery, recover, finish weaving the alpaca monstrosity that is currently on my loom, and then try an advanced level weaving pattern on a loom that I don't really have the right equipment for. Yeah, this is gonna work fine. It'll work great. I have no concerns at all. It will work, and then I will figure out what to do with my weaving. But it's actually kind of fun. It'll be a nice challenge to try to expand my weaving skills, because I bought this loom and I made 2 things on it, and then I put it in timeout and never picked it up again. So I want to continue to grow in that way as I can. So speaking of weaving and acquisitions, I have some locally purchased woven items to share with you today. I work nights, so if you've ever worked nights, you probably know that sometimes at night you get bored with everyone asleep and none of the stores open and nothing to do. So in order to get ahead of some of that boredom, I went to the local mall and found this shop, which I am going to mispronounce the name. It is Minsah Kogei. There you go. And it was just a store in the mall that was selling these locally produced woven items. So this is what I purchased. I got a little set. So this is a wallet with a little pencil case and a change purse. And I also got myself a face mask. I figure, if the face mask is going to be with us for a while, I might as well get one that is beautiful and expresses my fashion and expresses things I'm interested in, such as weaving and fiber crafts and all of those beautiful, beautiful things. This mask is actually really, I don't know, it feels like a very finely produced, nice object. The black fabric is also woven, which I can't really show you, but I'm really, honestly, this is my favorite part of the purchase, and it's a face mask. So anyway, these guys, they have lots and lots of colors. This, of course, is a very traditional pattern in Okinawa, and it's been used for a long, long time in this region of the world. So the main store where these are produced, there's actually a workshop there too, so you can go and do weaving classes, and you can watch them work, and you can, they offer various courses. So there's a short course where you make little coasters, and then there's a long course where you make these big decorative wall hanging sashes and table runners and things like that. I'll try to take pictures of this to make it maybe look a little bit better for you. From long time, a type of indigo dyed obi sash for kimono called Minsah were created in Yayama. This obi was presented from a woman to a man as an engagement to her fiance. The distinct design with the alternating 5 and 4 point rectangles symbolize eternal love. Women together with the designs are the promises of love forever. So I didn't know that. That's what these two were traditionally made by women and presented to their fiancés when they were going to be married, and it was worn as an obi sash. So that's exciting and interesting, and now I think that perhaps this might be a wallet meant for men because women present it to men. I don't know. I don't care. I like it and I use it and I love it. So again, this is located on Ishigaki-jima, which is an island. It's one of the outlying islands here in Okinawa. I think you can only reach it by plane. I don't think there's a ferry out to it from here. Right now I am not visiting there. I really want to, because I've been wanting to go there for diving and snorkeling, and now I know there's a weaving studio there too, so I can go buy woven stuff and maybe take a weaving class while I'm out there. But right now There has been kind of a COVID outbreak on that island, and there's no inpatient hospital there, so it's not really a great place to have very, very sick people because there's not access to really good immediate care. So for that reason, travel out to that island is being limited because not only do they want to contain, the illnesses there, but they also don't want to introduce new illness onto the island. There's another local island too, the Miyakojima, which is sort of in the same spot where they have no inpatient hospital care. So I will not be going there to visit now, but in the future, maybe. And then if I don't want to take a class, there is a couple of shops here on Okinawa. One of them is in Naha, which is kind of the main city of the island. South of us here, I live in Okinawa City, and we're kind of wedged between Naha and Nago, which are sort of the three big cities here on this island. But you can also, of course, just go to the mall. I will include a link to the website for this because I'm not sure if you can buy them online. It looks like you might be able to buy some of this online and have it shipped to you. So if that's something you are interested in, please see below and I will put in the link below. I do have one other purchase of locally crafted items. So this is not a fiber arts related object, but this is a beautiful bowl that is made here locally. So this is called Shibuya Yaki, which is a traditional type of Okinawa pottery or crafting. I have a little handout here. This is talking about the gentleman who actually made this piece. So his name is, Ikuo Omiya. Please forgive, I do my very best, but these things happen. So he's a local craftsman that's won several awards here and is well recognized for his art. I actually was just blocking some of my secret knitting and stabbing myself with blocking pins as I was fishing them out of the little glass jar that I keep them in, and thinking to myself, wouldn't it be nice if I had this like a nice wide flat bowl to put my pins in while I was blocking. And later that day I was out and about and just happened to pass a little like a setup booth with a bunch of this pottery for sale in it, and it is gorgeous. I honestly felt bad just buying one. I wanted to buy like a whole set of these, but it is perfect. And it is, I wonder if this is, could this be indigo also? Like, this color reminds me of indigo, which is used a ton here in dyeing for weaving. I don't really know that much about ceramics and whether you use the same sorts of dyes or whether they derive from the same plants, but this color definitely reminds me of that. So that's just me talking about a craft that I have no knowledge of whatsoever. I will also put a link below for this gentleman's website if you want to take a look at all of his other projects. Last but not least this week, in prior episode, I showed off a gift package that I had received from the Grocery Girls, and I, in it, received this beautiful interchangeable knitting needle case by Wild Strands. And I mentioned how much I loved it and how much I was at odds because I really like my current interchangeable knitting needle case. I have to admit to myself that I don't think I'm going to use this, gentleman. I have to admit to myself that I don't think I'm going to end up using this, and I just can't stand to waste it. So hopefully my viewers will forgive me for re-gifting, but I think what I'm going to do is set this aside as one of the prizes for a future knit-along giveaway. So I'll put some extra goodies in there, some stitch markers, and we'll see what else. But hopefully you guys will forgive me for re-gifting this. It's too pretty for it to sit and waste in my house. And I know that if I were watching a podcast and I wanted it, I would not be upset if someone re-gifted it on to their viewers. So hopefully you will forgive me for that. But that will go aside for future make-alongs. I have not announced my next make-along because, like I said, I'm waiting for my upcoming surgery. And I just don't think that I'm going to have the energy, or I don't know what my limitations are going to be as far as participating. So that will have to come in maybe an episode or two further down the line. We'll announce another knit along or make along. So as far as future episodes go, I think I will definitely have 1 or 2 sort of down episodes where I'm not going to have a lot of knitting content. And I've been thinking about what I want to present to you during that time, whether I'm just going to take a break or whether I want to put together something to talk about. So I think this might be a good opportunity to do something like a frequently asked questions episode or an Ask Me Anything episode. So maybe in preparation for that, if you want to have an expert knitter or a master knitter answer some of your knitting questions, put them below. And then of course, I'm not going to put anything off limits. So if you have questions about me, about what brought me to Okinawa, about my knitting history, or maybe just any question related to knitting that you think I might be able to illuminate you on, put that below in the comments, or you can go over to the Ravelry group and I have an Ask Me Anything thread open there. And I love this sort of format where I open up these questions because in the past I've had people ask me about some local Okinawa crafts that I didn't know very much about, and it led me kind of down that rabbit hole. So here in Okinawa there is a tradition of weaving the banana leaf fibers, or I think it's actually the stalk of the banana. We can talk about that a little bit in a future episode, but there is a process here where they weave and spin the banana plant fibers. All that to say, if you have questions, put them below or put them over on the Ravelry group, and I will, I think, put together sort of an Ask Me Anything for one of my future episodes while I'm recovering from my surgery. All right, guys, that is actually all I have for you today. Hopefully this setup is acceptable for you, and I'm sorry that the knitting content is light, but I look forward to seeing you next time. And as always, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as HaxtonKnits. And if you need to contact me directly, I do have HaxtonKnits@gmail.com available to you. All right, guys, happy knitting. Have a great day.